Rightio, so we might get started. It's 3:30, so thank you for everyone joining. Just to let you know that this will be a recorded session just to enable us to share the webinar for any teachers who aren't able to make this session. So welcome to our Ask an Expert webinar series. My name's Lily Stoyles and I work for CQ Agri-tech education team, and we're one of the facilitators of the state government's funded Gateway to Industry program. So we have a few team members here, Catherine and Jana, who are also assisting us with the Q&A and any tech issues that you might have. So just pop any issues into the chat and one of our team can respond and help out. So CQ facilitates the state government's funded Gateways to Industry Schools program in partnership with AgriFutures Australia, Queensland Agricultural Teachers Association, and the AgForce School to Industry Partnership program. This is our second year. It's a 3-year program. And as part of the Gateway program, there are 2 streams. So our first stream, or stream 1, is where we work intensively with 15 different schools, and that's where we're assisting them in embedding ag into their curriculum, as well as developing industry partnerships. Our stream 2, this is where we work with a broader group of schools and includes this series of webinars, as well as some teacher professional developments we have coming up and some incursions we're running with schools. So if you're interested in those, we'll touch base a little bit later, but just look out on our Facebook page and website for any information about these opportunities. So this year's webinar series has been a bit different to our previous ones. It's where we're exploring some different ways to bring agriculture as well as industry connections to your classroom. So this year, part of the Gateway program, we've had a number of schools not only starting their ag journey, but also interested in a few different areas. So we thought it'd be fantastic to develop this webinar series as a resource for schools. So we have run 3 already for 2026 that you can see on the screen in front of me. This will be our final webinar for the series. So if you've missed any of the previous ones, we've got them all recorded for this webinar series. So if you haven't got access to those or you'd like access, just reach out and we can give those to you. So the structure of our webinar will consist of 2 15 to 20-minute presentations from our experts, and it'll also be followed by a live Q&A. So this is where we're giving you guys a chance to ask some questions as well as get some advice, whether that's tailored to your school's needs or just in general. Today we will hear about developing and maintaining industry connections. So this will explore ways to whether it's strengthening your local connections with agriculture in the region. We'll also look at using and developing practical strategies, not only to find but foster those connections with producers around you guys. And not only hear from our experts, but get the opportunity to ask some more specific questions. So this might be a bit more applicable to your own situation. And we'll build some networks and contacts, not only to help your students get immersed into local ag sector, but also let teachers build a bank. As we go along, feel free to pop in any questions in the chat. So if you don't forget them, and then at the end, when we speak directly to them, we can ask the experts. So we're very fortunate today. We have some experienced panelists who are joining us and giving their time and expertise. So first we have Emily and Tanya. So they're from AgForce, so AgForce School to Industry Partnership Program. This is a long-standing initiative that connects schools with the agriculture industry across Queensland. This is through industry events, school programs, teacher PDs, and hands-on learning experience. SIP helps build those meaningful partnerships that increase agricultural awareness, showcase career opportunities, and strengthen connections between education and industry. Our second presenter is Molly. So we're joined today by Molly from Brace. She just completed her PhD. So Molly's research focused on agricultural and industry school partnerships, exploring the key principles that help schools and industry build and maintain successful long-term connections that benefit both students, educators, and those industry partners. So what I'll do is I'll stop sharing and I'll hand it over to the AgForce ladies to present. Has that one worked?
Hopefully. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Yeah. Great. Okay, thank you everyone for being here today. So Emily and I will be co-presenting this session, and it's designed just to be really practical and encouraging, especially for teachers who are new to agriculture or are trying to establish partnerships without a strong local network in place. The good news is that a strong partnership doesn't usually start with huge programs. They usually start with one conversation, one contact, and one opportunity. So agriculture is one of those subjects where real world exposure makes an enormous difference. Students gain so much hearing directly from producers, agronomists, vets, transport operators, or agribusiness professionals. Partnerships help students see what agriculture looks like today and understand modern agriculture, the diversity of careers available, and develop employability skills, build local community connections and opportunities that exist in their own communities. Partnerships also help industry. They help industry by engaging future workforce, supporting regional communities, improving the understanding of agriculture, and connecting with schools in meaningful ways. Students remember the producer who visited their classroom or the farm that they visited far longer than the worksheet they completed.
Right. So what a partnership can look like. So one of the biggest misconceptions is that partnerships need to be large or formal from day one. In reality, many successful partnerships begin with something very simple. So that can be a guest speaker, it can be a farm visit, or just one business that's willing to support a school activity. So starting small actually helps build confidence for both schools and industry partners. So common challenges for teachers. So these are some things that we hear quite often that are challenges for all you guys. So these are probably the most common concerns we hear from teachers, especially for teachers entering agriculture from another subject area. It can feel overwhelming trying to build those industry connections, but the important thing to remember is you do not need to be an agricultural expert to facilitate valuable partnerships.
Sometimes teachers assume they need a perfect contact or a large business to begin, but partnerships can come from many places. A local producer may be willing to host a visit or talk to students or simply answer your questions. And if local opportunities are limited, virtual connections are becoming increasingly valuable. Industry generally wants to help schools, but teachers often need to make the first approach. This is probably, approaching industry is probably one of the most important parts of partnership development. Industry is often willing to help, but people are busy. Teachers are busy and industry are busy. The more specific and manageable your request is, the more likely you are to get a positive response. Small asks create momentum and relationships. So keep your request simple, specific, realistic and flexible. So instead of, can you partner with our school, break it down to something like, would you be available for a 30-minute classroom visit to discuss careers in beef production? Making it very specific and a certain time frame really helps than just having a very open and generic question.
Tips for building strong relationships. So like any relationship, partnerships need maintaining. Some key advice would be to start small, do not overcommit early, communicate clearly. So industry appreciates timelines like Tanya had just said, expectations around the session, some student numbers, and some safety requirements. So make it easy. So help organise logistics with them. One of the best things schools can do is show appreciation and share outcomes with those industries. So something as simple as a thank you email or some student letters, a photo, or even a newspaper mention can make a huge difference. So keep relationships warm. Do not only contact industry when you need something. So keep those relationships open. What industry values from schools? So industry partnerships often stay engaged when they can clearly see the value for students. Good communication is incredibly important. So timelines, student numbers, expectations, safety requirements, these things help create positive experiences for everyone.
This is probably the message that I most want teachers to take away from today. You do not need to have grown up in agriculture or know every part of the industry. Your willingness to connect students with opportunities is what matters most. Your role is to not know everything. It is to help students connect people with people who do. Your role is to facilitate the connections, create the opportunities, encourage curiosities, and connect students with industry experts. Partnerships are built through relationships, not perfection. So, practical first steps. Partnerships become much more achievable when broken into small steps. One conversation can lead to many future opportunities. So this week you could think about identifying one potential industry contact. When you've thought about who you would like, reach out with a simple request or invite them to be a guest speaker, one guest speaker, or connect with a local agriculture organisation. If you don't know, if you have a particular area you would like to engage with, but you don't have any connections, then more than welcome, I would say, to reach out to us, because that's our job, that's our bread and butter. We do that all the time to help you, but also ask your community. They may know someone, have a connection, or ask another organisation like the local show society might know someone. Just start small, and partnerships will grow.
So this is just about having a discussion now, whether you've got any questions and answers. So it's just a great opportunity to share some ideas and experiences. There's some schools out there doing some really great things. So if you're one of those, often the best ideas come from hearing what other schools are already trying.
And just some things on the slide are about what if there, you have very few ag businesses near your school. Use online connections. M&I and Cal, we're forever Googling places to go and visit, having a look around, just contacting them. Reach out to state, regional and state organisations. Of course, we're always here to help you connect to the agriculture industry. Use alumni and community contacts. I talked about that. Just start with one contact. You don't need to be like, I want to run a whole 4-day program, so I need 10 contacts. If you just start with one, that could quite often lead into other contacts. And if industries don't respond, and they quite often don't respond because they are busy, we're all busy, just follow up politely, keep your requests small, be flexible. But if it doesn't work, then try another contact. And it takes time to build relationships. I mean, I've been doing this for nearly 12 years. And I have some contacts that I started right at back at the start and still have, but every week I will, get a new contact that helps in the industry. This is just a little simple email template that I put together about how you could contact industry people. So yes, you can use this, just fill in the parts that you need to for your school. So possibly this week you could try this. Find one local industry contact, or if it's a virtual, doesn't have to be local, can be state or Australia-wide contact, and send them a small email with a very specific thing that you would like from them. Yeah. Do you want to do that?
Yeah. So developing strong partnerships starts with a conversation, relationships, and small achievable steps. So students benefit most when schools and industry work together. And as we've said, industry are willing to help. You've just got to approach them in the right way. So thank you for everybody for your time today. If you've
And
got
I will
any
say-
questions, let us know.
I will say that, you know, for 10 industry people that we reach out to, we may only get 3. So it's not that they're ignoring you specifically, it's just how they are. They're super busy. Lots of them don't have enough workforce. So it's just about, and some people are nervous about talking to kids. So we always try to say, you know, if you're willing to talk, we can help you with a little activity or something like that if you want a hands-on activity. Again, I keep saying you're welcome to contact us because we work in this space a lot. So, you know, if you are looking for a specific contact in an area, we're more than happy to help with that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, we'll just hold to the end. So write them down, chuck them in the chat. But I'll hand it over to Molly to start her presentation as well. And yeah, at the end, we'll get any of those questions through.
Sorry, I hadn't taken myself off mute and I couldn't find it again. Once I started
That's all
showing my
right.
screen, I've got too many screens going. Try again. All right, hopefully you can hear me and see me.
Yep, we can hear and see you. Thanks, Molly.
Great. Thanks, guys. So, yeah, I'm Molly and I used to work in the CQU team with Lily and the others whilst I was doing my PhD, but I finished that. Well, I graduated just a couple of months ago, but the project that I was working on wrapped up probably nearly 3 years ago. So I've been out of the industry school partnership space as I suppose, a facilitator for a few years, but I have been the industry partner in a number of partnerships since then. So my research, was on the Race Gippsland project. So it was based in Gippsland in Victoria. And we delivered 57 industry school partnerships over about 3 years in this project, and that included both incursions and excursions. Some partnerships had one of those things. They might have had both or numerous incursions or excursions. So it was a real mix. Some were very short term, some were longer term. There was a bit of all sorts in there. My role, aside from researching both mainly the teachers and the industry partners and what they thought about it all, was being the facilitator of those partnerships and being that link between the teacher and the industry partner. My research found that facilitation really valuable, as well as funding for things like buses and whatnot really valuable, but you can't always get that facilitation and that funding outside of programs like CQU and AgForce do. But it's possible for you to be able to be that facilitator yourself. I'm just going to share a few things that what worked the best in Race Gippsland, and I suppose a lot of these things are echoing what AgForce just shared with you. And when I was doing my presentation, I put a lot of the same things in. And when I saw what these guys were doing, I took a lot of that out, and I'm just going to, I suppose, touch on the things that I really thought were best. So communication, always super important, but being really clear what you want from that industry partner and what you can provide is really important. Keeping it simple, keeping it clear, making sure, I suppose a key thing is that the industry partners are not teachers. So they don't necessarily know everything about teaching, behaviour management, what is the right level to pitch it at for, year 9s versus year 3s versus year 12s. So making those expectations really clear and helping them to understand your cohort and how best to work and engage them is really important. some industry partners will be really great at this and have a knack for it, but others won't have very much experience in the classroom or with students at all. So as a teacher, for industry partners, it's really great when the teacher can provide a lot of support there. So that kind of goes into having engaging activities. Same thing, some industry partners will have some great ideas for engaging activities, but others won't, or won't really understand what's the right fit. So if you can go to them and explain really clearly that you're looking for something engaging, hands-on for your students, and potentially offer some ideas and bounce ideas around with them, you can get to to a point where instead of just rocking up and not really knowing what's going to go on and it's going to be a really hit or miss, that you know that it's going to be spot on. And then my other part, the right content. So you want it to be curriculum aligned, the right stuff for you and the students, but also getting value for that industry partner as well. So they might really want to be showcasing like their career or different careers in agriculture and looking for a workforce, or there might be something in it for them, and you need to ask them to know what they want to get out of it. Right. And so what we found in the research was not super surprising here, but what industry wanted was they wanted to be able to support the next generation, give back to the community, promote careers in agriculture, and strengthen future workforce pipelines. So a big part was either just, to do with workforce, or also was just that feel-good factor for them, that giving back. And for many, it was all of those things at once. It's just good to keep in mind. So AgForce had a few things there about finding industry partners. I agree with everything that they had on their list, but just a couple I wanted to focus in on or get a little bit more specific is what I do now. Now that I'm not in the university, I work for a natural resource management organisation in South Australia. So over here we're called a landscape board. So I work for the Northern and York Landscape Board, and I'm a sustainable agriculture facilitator. So there is a sustainable agriculture facilitator in every natural resource management area in the country. So if you guys are in Queensland, you've got sustainable ag facilitators up there. We're funded by the federal government, and part of our role is to create networks between agricultural stakeholders, farmers and others, helping share information with farmers, connecting people up with up-to-date sustainable agriculture information. So our job is kind of to be all over what's going on in agriculture in our areas. So you can reach out, you can Google sustainable agriculture facilitators. You'll find the government, the DAF website, and you can go to your state and to your region, and all of our name and contact details are listed on the website. So there's one contact for you all. If you don't know your local sustainable ag facilitator, look that one up and give them a call and touch base. I'm sure if they're anything like me and my colleagues in South Australia, they will have heaps and heaps of contacts for you. They may even be someone who would be suitable to be an industry partner and bring into the classroom, or take you and your students out to see something that they're doing. So that's one. And then the other industry bodies, we've got these things called research and development corporations, or RDCs, in agriculture. There's one for most of the big industries like grains, sugarcane, cotton, meat and livestock. You can look up those list of RDCs, you can get contact details for them. There's likely somebody who works in those organisations closer to your region, and you can get in touch with them to find out, help find contacts for you, whether that is an industry partner who works in the RDC to partner with, or someone who can connect you with somebody else more relevant. They're a great start for finding contacts. And they also, there was a question that came through earlier about industry bodies and finding them and who they are. So RDCs are a good place to start. You can ask them and they will connect you with any other more local groups to you. And then just a few points on, I suppose, maintaining and building those partnerships. I brought that point. I put that point up big to remind me to make sure I say it, that industry partners are not teachers. So I suppose making sure, do everything that you can to support that industry partner, because they don't necessarily have all of those skills, especially if it's their first time or they haven't had a lot of experience in the classroom. Yeah, with what's the right level, what's engaging. The classroom behaviour thing is a massive piece. It works so much better when the teacher is managing that classroom behaviour. I've been in quite a lot of rooms or excursions where the teachers haven't been helping with that, and it's made life quite difficult for the for the industry partner who is not sure what to do. Just last week, I was invited into a classroom as part of a careers sort of day. It was a group of year 10, mostly boys who I don't think really wanted to be there. And I was asked to come and present and do an activity about sustainable agriculture. I brought my colleague with me who didn't have a lot of experience in the classroom, and I was very, very glad that I didn't just get her to go on her own, and that I went with her, because I've got a background in teaching, and so it was easy for me to sort of step in and help to manage that behaviour, because the teachers weren't really doing that. But my colleague who didn't have that experience was a little bit shocked, really, and didn't know what to do, and was kind of standing there really unsure. And I suppose, yeah, for a lot of industry partners, that can be how it is for them. So that's, yeah, big on that. If you can be onto that classroom behaviour, it makes the industry partners' experience much, much better. AgForce brought this up about acknowledging. So, yeah, we found that in my research that was something that they would find valuable or sort of looking for, made it a better experience if they were acknowledged for the effort that they put in. So, you know, can you send them a thank you message from the class afterwards or something like that? And we also found that reinforcing student learnings was really valuable. So can you make this just not be a one-off, go out to a farm, have someone come in and talk in the classroom? Can you build that into the curriculum and what you're learning, and go back over that, or build it into some kind of project or assignment that you're working on, so it's not just one learning opportunity and then we never speak about it again? So that was really important. We tried to do that through the Race Gippsland project, especially where we had the opportunity to have more than one incursion or excursion, and they were, yeah, really valuable, where you could have more opportunities to be in front of those students and bring agriculture into the classroom. Yeah, the industry partners also really love, this goes with the acknowledge part, I suppose, is hearing student feedback or getting updates on what the students have been learning. So, yeah, if you can go back and provide that information and I suppose show that industry partner that, yeah, their time was valued and it had an outcome, that students did learn something or, you know, got something out of that incursion or excursion, is really great. Okay, so I've just got a couple of simple case studies or examples of what we did either in the race project or things that I've done since then. So, 'cause I think you're all high school teachers. This was one example, was a year 10 genetics class. It was an elective specifically for genetics. And we had 3 different industry partners plus myself. We had a sales manager at a cattle genetics company. We had a dairy farmer, and we had somebody from a milk supply company. So what we did was the students were learning about genetics in the classroom. We had the students go out on an excursion to a farm with the sales manager and the dairy farmer, and actually physically take the genetic samples from some new calves. So that was exciting, actually getting out there, seeing a farm, getting their hands dirty, seeing the whole process. They were sent away to a lab. Once the results came back in, we went back into the classroom and we analysed that data. So this was a really, it worked really well. So we had to do a little bit of a lesson on how to use Excel. So, filtering things, using it beyond the surface level that the students had used it before. They thought that was pretty cool, seeing all the things that Excel, not all the things, but just some of the other things they'd never seen Excel be used for. And then we had a whole conversation around that, making decisions and how to prioritize and what did the farmer want. I suppose like being a consultant for them. So they got to have a deep dive into that data and make decisions that could be given back to the farmer to make practice change on their farm. And then we also built into this partnership the milk supply company. So all these genetic tests were on dairy cattle, and so we're trying to have better milk quality and quantity. And so we had someone come in and we did some activities with testing milk for things like protein and sugars and different things. So they also got that science side of it, and I suppose that outcome of production, what we're trying to do to the production, and I suppose measuring that as well. So that was a really great activity, and it was quite simple to, I suppose, set up. Like once you'd done that once, it'd be really easy to replicate that every year. It wasn't a big lot of time on both any of the industry partners side, but you could build it out a lot in the classroom to get a lot of value from those experiences. Just another one, this one was primary school, but we did similar things at high school as well. In this partnership, it was a very small school, and we did it with the entire school at once, and we went out for an excursion on a local farm. And then we brought some other industry partners like an agronomist into the classroom as well, or into the school. We made some butter, which was pretty cool. And we also did some soil testing with the agronomist in the school's veggie garden. So we talked on the farm about agronomists and soil testing, and then we came back and actually did some tests at school. And then they could build that into a project for the term to improve their soil and improve their results in their garden. So that was another good one that had a long-term impact, and you could keep revisiting that content, even though that industry partner, it didn't take up a lot of their time, which made it easier to do again and again, I suppose. And just a couple of other ones. We did have a lot longer ones over like a whole term or a semester. We did a couple of different groups where the students actually tried to create their own business. And so we linked up each small group with relevant industry partners to help support them in their decision making over creating their business. So that was a really cool one. It took a little bit more time or more interactions with the industry partners, but they got a lot more out of it working one-on-one with a small group of students who valued that industry partner's time. And then we did some really simple one-off incursions or excursions, like making ice cream. That's always a hit. And one excursion that really came to mind was we went to a machinery dealership, and the teacher had, instead of just rocking up to this machinery dealership, having a chat, having a look around, the teacher had created a worksheet that the students took with them while they were there. And they had to tick off different things or ask certain questions, and it worked really, really well to keep the students engaged, instead of there being, and she knew her students well, and instead of it just being an awkward, nobody putting their hand up, no one wanting to ask a question, this worksheet really prompted them and promoted discussion and interaction with that industry partner, and the industry partner really appreciated it and was like, wow, these students are interested, and it seems like they want to be here, and I feel like my time's being valued. And yeah, just that worksheet really helped. Helped there. All right, I've just got, I suppose, one more example, and if you want to participate, I would love to see in the chat, if I work out how to see the chat, a couple of things from you. I've got an example here. So a year level, I picked Year 9 Geography. The topic's food security. One of the curriculum outcomes is around understanding challenges to sustainable food production and food security in Australia and appropriate management strategies. I would love if we can get an example from the room. Can you give me a year level, a subject, and a topic, please? If you've got a curriculum outcome, great, but don't worry if you haven't got one that comes to mind. Can we get an example? A year level, a subject, and a topic, and let's see if we can come up with an idea for an industry school partnership. Now, while you guys are thinking and typing, I'm going to try and see where you guys are, if I can see the chat. Here we go. Does anyone want to use their class as the example? Have we got a year level, a subject, and a topic? Here we go. All right, year 8, agriculture, pasture and grasses. Students need to identify grasses. Okay, let's keep that one in mind. So for my geography example, I've trying to come up with 5 different people who might be able to help. So I have come up with a producer or a farmer, an economist, an agronomist, a food processor, and an industry organisation. Can you guys come up with 5 people who might help for year 8, agriculture, pasture and grasses? See if we can come up with 5 different jobs, 5 different types of people for year 8, agriculture, pasture and grasses. Who have you got for me? Can you come up with anyone who might be a suitable industry partner?
Seed representative, like a seeds place. That's one I can think of.
Yep, somewhere that like sells grass seed. That's one. Have we got any others? Who else might help? I'm going to go for a farmer. So I'm also a farmer. I grow grass. So someone like me, I might be good. We've got a weed sprayer or a slashing company. A regenerative farmer. And that's about 5, a slashing company. Nice one. So look at that. It only took us here we go, a botanist. That's nice. Perfect. All right, so now we've got a few ideas of who we could bring into the classroom. What kind of activity could we do? We've got, what have I come up with? So my activity, so this is what I did. I did this just the other day as an industry partner. So I've used this as my example. I went into the classroom, I suppose, as a farmer, or kind of half as a farmer, half as a consultant. And I had a group, there's about 30 kids in the class, and I split them into small groups, and I printed off a map of it was a pretend farm, not my own farm, but a pretend farm, and I had a bunch of little ideas of different projects they could do on that farm, like things like do rotational grazing or install solar panels, plant trees along the creek, different things, and the students stuck them on the farm where they thought they might be able to do that project. And then we had sort of discussion about what these different practices were, why I might or might not do those on my farm, different things like that throughout, and had some Q&A. So it was a pretty simple activity for me. I could repeat that really easily over and over again. What could we do? Who's got an idea? Incursion, excursion, some other sort of project for a year 8 ag, pasture and grasses. Who has got an idea? How can we get an industry partner involved? I can see some typing. Feel free to unmute yourself and just talk as well. You don't have to write it in the chat. Have we got any ideas? So I'll give you one while you're thinking. Simple one here. Could we go and visit go for a farm visit, excursion out to a farm, see some grass, or excursion to a turf farm. There we go. Excursion to a turf farm. Super simple if you've got a nice turf farm nearby. But what about if going on an excursion is cost prohibitive? What other options can I have a second option if I couldn't go for a nice, amazing excursion to a turf farm?
I know some companies that we've worked with, they've sent things to schools as well. So you could reach out and see if you can get like resource kits or maybe some samples, pasture samples, hay samples sent to the school.
That's a good one. So yeah, the seed rep, which was one of the first jobs that came up before, reach out to them. Yes, it's like virtual tour. If you couldn't get someone nearby to do an incursion either, could you contact one of those companies and ask them, could you send me some different grass seeds and do an activity in the classroom? Could you bring them in on Teams or Zoom and help with doing a bit of a grass ID activity as well? So yeah, we had another one on there. So different grass seeds, and yeah, grow the seeds. You could grow them as well. Turn it into a nice long-term project. And you've got agronomist incursion, can identify grasses around the school. So yeah, could you actually go for a school tour with an agronomist or someone who knows about grass ID and actually identify what you've got in your own school? And I've just thought about this. I love, there's an app called iNaturalist, and I use it all the time on our farm. We've got some like native grazing area with lots of different native plants, and every time I go out there, I find something new, and you can take a photo and put it in there, and it can help you identify things as well. So that's another good one for just plant ID, is using this iNaturalist app. That's aside from industry school partnerships, but just come to mind. Perfect. And it looks like we actually have someone here who is a regen farmer, not a teacher. And yeah, welcome. Thanks for being here. So here we go, an industry partner, a connection for you teachers already. And just the last thing on this before we move on to questions is we've just come up with this idea. Let's actually see a little bit of a test. Is there a clear curriculum link? So yeah, I think we've got that. Is there value for students? I can see value for students in a range of those different activities that we've come up with, some nice hands-on things linked to the curriculum, good learning outcomes for them. Is there value for industry? I can bet you see people who love grasses, any opportunity to come in to the classroom or send seeds and help students to learn about identifying grasses, that they will love that. Is it realistic? So if you've got the resources for the excursion, definitely, but we've come up with some other options for more realistic things. If we can't even get an industry partner into the school, different ways. So I think we've got some really realistic options there. And then could it happen again next year? Can you do this over and over again? And I think some of these ideas that you guys have come up with, you definitely could. So I like it. I think you've come up with a good idea there. All right, I am going to stop sharing. That is all from me. So yeah, just a quick little get the brains working there. But I suppose I've encouraged you to do, anytime you've got an idea, quick 5 minutes, have a think about it. Is there some link that I can find? And if so, great. And if not, reach out to someone like these guys at AgForce. A bit of AI. We didn't have ChatGPT back a few years ago when I was doing my PhD and coming up with ideas for incursions, but I suppose there's a lot of scope there to get a start, especially when you haven't got any ideas, and build on that too. So another little tip from me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tanya, Emily, and Molly, for those presentations. Such a wealth of knowledge and some really great points for our teachers to take away from those presentations. So now what we're going to do is hand it over for anyone who's in attendance who would like to ask any questions. So feel free to unmute yourself if you want, or if you're comfortable, you can pop it in the chat. We also have a few questions as well sent in by those that aren't able to make it today, but will be watching the recording. So I'll hand it over to the teachers. Feel free to unmute yourself if you want, or chuck it in the chat, and then we'll put through some other questions that we've got sitting there. So we've got one that's just come through the chat is, where can I find a calendar of operations for my region? So trying to time those excursions in with what's going on in their region. Do you guys have anything that you'd want to add to that?
I think that one Molly pretty much answered. It's just talking to your, the RDCs or other state farming organisations like Cotton Australia. They would know. They would have a regional manager in your area that you could talk to, and they would say, okay, well, we harvest here. We, do this. It grows here. Agforce, we have grains and sugarcane and sheep, wool and goats and cattle. So, if you contacted us, we would be able to let you know in your region when things are happening.
Awesome. We've got another one that's come through is, have you previously navigated industry tours with students who may need additional needs?
Yes, I have done some industry school partnerships with schools where students had additional needs, and it's just that clear communication with the teachers being really clear about what additional needs there are, what things they need to think about, and then being really clear with the industry partner that this is what needs the students have, and like how can we work around this, what can we do, what can't we do, how can we make it work. I never had any issue with taking students with additional needs out onto farms or into different workplaces. We could always, they were always happy to accommodate that. That wasn't a problem at all. But you don't want to just rock up without telling that industry partner that there is a student or students with additional needs, and expecting them to accommodate that on the spot. So definitely right at the start, make those needs clear so that there's time to work that into the plans.
And adding on to that as well, we've done a few where we've actually sort of tailored the excursion based on the students' needs as well. So instead of locking in something and then putting it back on the farmer, we've worked with schools where we've actually tailored it to suits. We've gone to something in town where they had a ramp that was accessible for the student rather than going onto a farm just because they didn't have those facilities to help out as well. We have another question as well that's come through is, do I need to prepare my students for any biosecurity? So taking those students out on farm, have you guys found that there's a lot of biosecurity concerns or some methods that you've had to implement for that?
Depends where you're taking them, really. Some places you can't even get onto because of biosecurity. Some places will have stand down period. They'll say, well, you can't bring kids if they've had contact with, it's usually poultry or pigs, for a few days before. Some they'll make you put on like suits and stuff. Others will just be a foot bath. But I think the whole biosecurity thing, it's a great thing to talk to the kids about before you go anyway, just to let them understand why this is an issue, and that why we should be thinking about these things instead of just rocking up to places, knowing what the biosecurity requirements are for that. I think that's another great learning that kids can have in the excursion.
And I think it's also for fish too, fisheries and things like that. They're sort of similar. So again, it comes back to that communication, making sure it's clear. We've got another one that's popped in. What's sort of the average class size that you take onto farm excursions? So you guys have worked with a range of different sizes. Is there a sweet spot, or does it depend on, where you're going, the students that are going, the year level, things like that?
Yeah, I think it really depends. We've taken anything from about 4 kids up to 100 to a farm. When we get to those bigger numbers, we split them into groups and rotate them around. Something like 20 or 30, you're starting to push it probably over 30 at once, depending how many hands you've got or how many staff you've got to help manage that. And the students themselves, sometimes there'll be just a really easy group of students, and you can have a lot more then. But if the behaviour management is probably one of those limiting factors there, and depends on the students. But 20 is probably 15, 20 is probably a nice sweet spot, but you can make it work with any number if you've prepared.
Yeah, I was going to say we usually limit to about, if we're doing farming or business, agribusiness, not necessarily just a farm, any agriculture business, we usually try to limit to about 20, because you find that if there's more than that, then the kids at the back are not paying attention. They're not giving it the respect that is due. And that helps the industry and the kids both get the most that they can out of the visit.
And you'll also find as well some site-specific locations have age, usually over 16. So some of the, depends on the things, but I know we've gone to like sugar mills and things like that where they request over 16. So again, comes back to making sure when you are looking for those industries, you're working with if there is any age restrictions. We've got another good one, which I'm sure we can all relate to, is what's the best way to get a farmer to bring their wording back to the students' level?
I had a good one on this just last week when I went into the classroom. I presented did that sustainable ag activity, and there was another industry partner who was a drone guy there as well, and he presented first, and I just kind of I wasn't the teacher, but I was kind of had my teacher hat on, and I just stepped in and just helped out whenever he said something that I thought the group wouldn't understand, or was a bit too complex. I just questioned it and said, oh hey, could you please explain what agriculture is? I think was the first thing that that come out of my mouth. Like that group potentially didn't even know what agriculture meant, so I just kind of just kept butting in politely and saying, oh hey, could you just explain this, could you explain that, what does this mean, that kind of thing. And the industry partner is usually more than happy for you to sort of jump in and help redirect that back down to the right level. And that's something I'd also recommend you having a conversation with beforehand, and just saying, hey, are you happy if I, just jump in whenever? It'd be great for you to explain something a little bit more, or that kind of thing too. Just give them a heads up that you're going to do it, and they'll appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Molly. For us, we've been into quite a few regions where the students have challenges around learning, and it's been the teachers that have stepped in that have helped them navigate that. So, and industry are really respectful toward that. So, yeah, I think that as teachers, if you're not understanding something, or you think you know your students better than anybody else, if you don't think that they're understanding, then please step in. They're more than happy to bring that back to a level that is required for your students.
Is there any other teachers that would like to pop their? Oh, we've got one as well from our fellow industry person. Personally, I'd love to see any homework or documentation the kids have been working on, so I can prepare to understand better, and I can reframe my language. That's a really good point. Sort of giving the industry that background knowledge, whether it is their lesson plan or their unit that they're looking at, just so they can, tailor that day as well. There's also another one in here. To do with communicating. So is emailing or cold calling better to connect with industry? Is it easier to call a farmer out in the paddock or email them? Which method do you guys think works the best when you've tried reaching out to them?
I think it's very dependent on the region. To be honest, I don't know what everybody else's experience are. There's certain regions that I find cold calling far better and far more effective, and then others are far better on emails. So if you don't get a response, cold calling is absolutely fine, and they'll just tell you where to navigate from there. They'll tell you whether they prefer an email.
Yeah, I think hit and miss. It just depends on the person. Some people hate phone calls, some people hate emails. So it just depends on the person. So try both.
Awesome. I'll just double check if there's anyone else that would like to ask a question. Radio. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming along. Thank you to our panelists for a wealth of knowledge. Before we just finish up, I'd just like to remind everyone that This is our final Ask an Expert webinar. However, we have some more events coming up throughout the remaining of the year as part of our Gateway program. You can see in front of us, we've got some teacher PDs. We've got a few different locations and dates locked in. They'll be both in person and online. And we also have some incursions that we're looking to connect with some schools in Queensland as well. So if you want to keep an eye out for that, we put it on our socials as well as our mailing list if you're not on to that one as well. But I'd just like again to thank everyone for coming along. We really appreciate your time. I've noticed that there's also AgForce have put their contact into the chat as well if anyone wants to reach out to those guys. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And this will be all popped on to our YouTube as well. So for the recordings and things like that, we'll share with everyone. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.